Home, Total War. Alexander.
Welcome to a video review of Total War Alexander. This is an expansion pack for the original Rome Total War released in 2004 and is set before the original game. As usual, the game is split into 3 parts and an online component. Firstly, there is the campaign map, which you are given one goal: recreate Alexander the Great of Macedon's empire and crush Persia. To accomplish this, you have to raise armies in your cities and attack Persia. In this game there is no diplomacy, only war, as this is a very focused campaign, not as open-ended as the previous Total War games. However, because of this, you have to constantly go on the offensive. No time to stay in cities, otherwise you will run out of the time limit, because yes, you have to recreate his empire before he dies of old age or on the battlefield. Either way, if he dies before you've accomplished your goals and recreated his empire, the game's over. So because of this, there are no time to stay in cities and beat back the massive hundreds of Persian armies. You'll have to leave the city and take risks and attack the enemy head on, sometimes not giving you enough time to replenish your already small armies to full health. If you have a few big ones, you won't have time to march your armies to take the territory you need to win the game in time. You just can't march all your few armies to the territory in the time limit. With big ones, you need many ones to go ahead of battles, not even garrison, to win. Because of this, this is not a Total War game for beginners, as it's one of, if not the hardest Total War game of the series. One really amazing thing about the Total War games is that on the campaign map you can move into the terrain that you wish to be in, so then when you engage in battle, the battle is actually on the terrain you've picked. So if you move by a river, it'll be a river battle. If you move on a hill, you'll be on top of a hill if you get attacked. However, this works both ways, as the enemy can lure you into their preferred terrain. There are 2 types of battles in Alexander. You have siege battles and open field battles, because the naval battles until Empire Total War were always automated. Now, you can see the gameplay of the open battles, but let's talk about the siege battles. You get given siege equipment and you have to use that siege equipment to breach the walls and attack the gates, and I'll give you a quick explanation of a couple of the ideas of the siege combat in a second, but the main idea is that you have to fight your way through the flag and take it. A lot of people try to just fight their way through the defences of the army, but that isn't always the best thing to do. The best thing to do is to try and avoid the defences and then get to the flag and defend that. Now, there's the second component, the battles. It is a very original take on the RTS, with it being more about real military tactics instead of base building, and takes into factors like tiredness, where a more effective unit can be beaten by a less effective unit by being tired out before engaging, and morale. Now this is what makes Total War, the morale. In Total War, you can't charge the enemy through a hail of arrows, because your troops will run away in fear before they even touch the enemy force. Because of this, you may be losing a battle, but then you could do a very good manoeuvre, maybe moving your archers behind the enemy and then hitting them in the back with flaming arrows, and that will make the enemy flee in fear and panic. Now, this causes a very enjoyable and tactical experience with a rock, paper, scissors gameplay. Spear beats horse, horse beats sword, sword beats spear. Of course, there are different exceptions to this, as it's based on real-world military tactics. Now, one example would be the phalanx, as I'll go into now. One exception to this is the Macedonian phalanx. From the front, it is almost impregnable. However, the more mobile cavalry or swordsmen could attack from the sides or behind and surround them and crumble their morale, as I mentioned earlier. Or they could attack from the front to get them trapped in one place because they can't pull out because of that formation. And then more swordsmen can then run around the side before the other swordsmen crumble from morale and surround the enemy behind and win the battle, because of course Persia, which is the swords more focused faction, has more troops to be able to flank around with for balancing reasons, which is another of the many reasons why this game is so balanced online. But when you do attack the Macedonians from the flank, their phalanx does crumble and they go down to their swords, which aren't as effective as the Persians ones, as the Persians outnumber them by quite a bit, and the Macedonians will probably break their morale. But still, it's very difficult to accomplish this, as the Macedonians can often just fall back and go into another phalanx, although you then do have more manoeuvrability to get behind them again. Then you have to take the walls to outflank the Macedonians. This is much easier than taking the front, because you don't have to charge a phalanx head on, and you only have a couple of archers in your way which you can easily cut through. And as you can see, you can see the very complicated animations of the combat. However, one of the disadvantages of this is that although there are many thousands of people on screen at once, the individual people in the battles, unless they're a completely different squad, all are the same. Now, there's the final part of the game, the historical battles. Now, instead of this being you have open range to recreate Alexander's empire, you actually watch minor documentaries voiced by Brian Blessed after every battle and before every battle, explaining why and how Alexander got to particular places to do what, and then you play the battle with the actual numbers, etc., units in the same recreations of places that the battle was fought, and you are Alexander and you got to win the battle. Of course, with hindsight, you get told what Alexander did, more or less, so it's much easier than thinking it up on the fly, like Alexander had to, but it is quite enjoyable, informative, and very interesting experience. Now, this game, for the reasons I said before, is very enjoyable. The unit variety is a bit shallow, but it isn't as shallow that it's dampens the experience too much. So I'm going to give this game a 7 out of 10. It loses about 1 point to 2 points for the shallow unit variety and another point for difficulty, but the rest of it is so balanced, so perfect, so enjoyable that this is one of the greatest games in the Total Wars. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned to see my new videos which will be coming out soon.